it's not a surprise that, you'll see some uncertainty, unsettle people for a little while. But the bottom line is what happens out of stories like this. It is not a change of anything dramatic, I think, as far as the long-term story of India is concerned. And I think what investors and we will look at very, very carefully is what the approach of the administration to the future is. Does it use this as an opportunity to relaunch itself into an even faster or even more aggressive pace of structural reforms? Or does it continue to think about the pace being appropriate as it is? From our point of view, what has been true is that what's needed in India is not as aggressive a set of reforms in the initial phases. What the administration needs to do is just get the economy functioning right, get the administrative side of the story working properly. And as long as that continues to happen, India is starting from a low enough base that the growth story remains intact, we think.
Right, but at this point in time, given that the markets have reacted very negatively to this piece of news, do you think that it would be a bit of an overhang as investors, monitor what the government does and what stance it takes? Because over the last month and a half, the broad consensus was with the intolerance debate and the focus primarily being on Bihar elections, that somewhere the attention had shifted from development and pushing for key reforms by the government. Is that something that you're going to monitor closely, as you pointed out?
Well, we definitely are, but to be honest, a little bit of prudence on the part of investors would be warranted. I think what has happened is whenever a story like India turns out to be something that comes into the limelight with very few other sources of growth coming up so nicely, investors tend to think that it all has to happen at once. One of the things that we have maintained, and our India economists have talked about it very extensively, is that we do not think it's either good or likely that growth will surprise to the upside very quickly. We don't want credit growth to be very strong. We don't want economic growth to be very strong. And that can lead to disappointment among investors. But as long as people understand that this story is something that will evolve over a period of time, it will be a slow and steady rise up, and that's the way you keep the story sustainable, I think that's good. The second point of view is to look at it is you want an economy which has political checks and balances. You don't want an uninterrupted path for anyone, particularly when you've got an administration that is starting off on an economic agenda. Some political pushback is likely, and in fact, in most cases, it's healthy.
So you think that this is perhaps just the check and balance that was required at this point in time in the government's tenure at the center, and to that extent, do you believe that from here on we would perhaps see some sort of change in the way growth is approached and key economic reforms are approached?
Well, look, I'm not going to talk about the political side of the story. What we focus on is the economic side. And as far as the economic side is concerned, I think what we are going to look at is, as we have at all points, is what is the administration's approach from here on. Okay. And if it does turn out that they think, well, look, this is something that we need to use as an opportunity to push for a faster pace of reforms or a more dedicated pace of reforms, that's good. The second thing to keep in mind is, regardless of what administration rules where, as long as the approach of that particular administration in the state is to push for more competitive production structures, to push for a more efficient functioning economy, sure. I think it'll benefit the Indian economy nevertheless.
So you're still very positive on India among emerging markets, and despite this little political uncertainty, you think this would only be perhaps a knee-jerk reaction, which the markets would bounce back from?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way: if a political setback started unhinging a story like India's in such a short period of time, then we would have been wrong to think about it as a contender for strong growth over the next 5 years. We do expect all kinds of difficult problems in there, not just political. You've got the issue of recapitalizing public banks. You've got the issue of getting capex growth. You've got the rest of the world which has very low levels of demand. I think those are going to be economic challenges to deal with as well. As long as the economic path remains on the one that we think is warranted and the one that we think is necessary, I think we'll continue to remain positive on India.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.